Hilary. Where's Hilary gone? Hello. The 2020 Booker Prize shortlist has just been announced, and it's quite a surprise. I didn't make predictions for what would be on the shortlist this year. I only managed to read 6 out of the 13 long-listed novels before this announcement was made. But if I had made predictions, these wouldn't all be my choices. I'm somewhat disappointed in some of the judges' choices, but I'm also kind of excited about this group of books. There for a number of reasons. There is lots to talk about. I have reading plans, so let's get into all of it. First off, most obviously, and something everyone is going to be commenting on, is that Hilary Mantel is not on the shortlist after winning the Booker Prize for her 2 previous novels, and so she's not going to get that triple hit or triple win or whatever the sporting term is, which is a shame in a way, just because it would be really exciting to have Hilary Mantel be the first author to have won the Booker Prize 3 times. But yeah, it's not meant to be. And I did read this monumental novel. I made a whole video talking about it. There's so much to say about it. It's such a beautiful, complex book, and the whole series is an incredible look at what power does to some of the most powerful people in the country. And so even though it's a historical novel, I still think it has a lot of relevance today. And so I am quite sad that this novel didn't make the list, but I do agree. It's quite interesting, a comment Anna made when we were talking about the Women's Prize shortlist. Even though she's a super fan of this whole series and Hilary Mantel, she acknowledges, it's quite a big ask for readers to invest an entire series of books that's over 2,000 pages long and involves a lot of complex, intricate history. You have to really pay attention to it. I did have to really work hard to sort of get into and fully understand this whole series of books, and I'm sure there's still a lot more for me to understand and discover. But yeah, I thought it was really worth it. And I think that's one of the great things about prizes that I'm going to come back to when talking about this shortlist, is that it's pointing at books and saying, there's really something here that it's going to make it worth it to work hard to get into these books, which will require some effort and thought and concentration, more than you may be willing to give as a reader, depending on what kind of reading experience you want. Because some of my favorite books, are ones that I've had to really think about hard and do a lot of hard mental work to get into them. So yeah, I definitely think this whole series is worth it, and I think it's sort of interesting that they've highlighted other books which might require that same concentration, or to take a step back and look at the book in a different way than you might necessarily read it. But yes, some of the most famous names aren't on the shortlist. So Hilary Mantel, but also Anne Tyler hasn't made the shortlist, or Colin McCann, who's quite a well-known author, or Kylie Reid, whose novel has been massively popular and very well read. And yeah, I'm sort of sad that Such a Fun Age hasn't made the shortlist, even though I acknowledge the thing that comment a lot of people make, that there is a plot point in this which is so coincidental that it kind of stretches belief, but it allows the author to show and highlight how these characters are really self-obsessed in a way, and take on a black character's issues as their own, and make it their own cause, and try to direct and control her, and really make it about themselves. So I think this is a really timely novel, and but it's also just sort of looking at it objectively. These aren't authors probably that need the big boost that a prize can give them. So which, because they're so well known, and they've been selling so well, and obviously that shouldn't be the reason why judges make choices, but just as a reader who just is watching the prize from the outside, I think it's quite exciting that lesser known authors are being championed. There's 4 debut authors on this shortlist, and I think that is quite a bold choice on the judges' part, and is asking a lot from the reading public, because I think quite often general readerships, people who don't follow Prize as geekily as I do, or read a lot of new releases, feel more comfortable when there's a shortlist that has books that they've heard of or are familiar with, at least one or two on the list. And I think all of these books, are ones that probably, the wider reading public probably haven't heard of before, and so might feel a bit alienated looking at these 6 books. I mean, certainly a lot of people, in circles, bookish circles I follow online and on social media, have been talking about all of these books, but I know that's not the wider reading community's full experience. And I think another comment a lot of people are going to be making about this shortlist is it's very US heavy. 5 out of these 6 authors are US citizens or have been living in the US for a long time. I mean, Douglas Stuart was born in Scotland, and Maaza Mengiste was born in Ethiopia, but they're both also American. And the only author on here who isn't American is Tsitsi Dangarembga, who is Zimbabwean. And so, yeah, it's there's no English author on this list, and I think this is only one of the first times this has happened. I mean, don't hold me to this. I was looking through past shortlists, and I think the only other time when an English author hasn't been on the shortlist was in 2002, when the only UK author on the list was Sarah Waters. There was also an Irish author on the list, but this is an English book prize, and it's obviously been very controversial. Several years ago, it became open to the US, and since then, there have been a lot of US authors on the list, and now the shortlist is really dominated by them. And, again, I don't think that should go into the judge's decision on, the books that they're presented to read, because obviously they should just be picking the best fiction overall, regardless of the nationality or the, all the larger politics involved. But it's still quite a notable thing looking at this book prize from the outside. And then looking at the shortlist personally, I have a lot of feelings about this because I've read 2 and a bit of these novels, because one novel I started reading and stopped, and I'm going to get into that. But one novel I did read after the Longlist was announced was Shuggie Bain, which I absolutely loved. I thought this is an incredible book, and I got so drawn into this story about a boy in the 1980s living with his mother, who's an alcoholic, and they're living in a working class neighborhood of Glasgow, and he writes so poignantly about their struggles, and it's the most incredible depiction of alcoholism I think I've ever read. I mean, how he shows the full journey of this, and the mother is such a complex character in this. There's so many facets to her, and you're sort of following her story and sort of rooting, hoping she'll get better, and seeing how this is affecting the boy. But also he depicts how the larger community and the circumstances and the politics of the time are really impacting their personal journey. And so, yeah, I think he captures that so beautifully, showing this, through this boy's eyes. But yeah, I'm really glad that more people are going to be reading this. I know a lot of people who have been reading along with the prize are going to be very happy to see this here. It's not unanimously loved, stumbling over my words. But some people, do have objections to it or didn't enjoy this book as much as I and some other readers have. So, it'd be really interesting to hear people's competing opinions, because, this is what this is all about, I think, of book prizes, and why I love following book prizes, that it pushes me, to think more complexly about what I'm reading, and it's challenging my initial assumptions or my initial reading of a book, which may change my opinions, may not. Like when I was reading the Women's Prize shortlist and discussing it with Anna, she really helped me to understand in more depth the what became the winner of the Women's Prize, Hamnet. And speaking of that, a lot of people are going to be very glad that Hamnet won the Women's Prize, because because it wasn't listed for the Booker Prize at all. And so, Hamnet's had its day now and its moment in the spotlight. And so we've had this moment of historical fiction. So I feel like, in a way, I'm almost more comfortable that The Mirror and the Light isn't on the shortlist because, it's this other big historical novel set in a similar period. And so it's, refreshing in a way that we're not just getting sort of the same fiction winning all of the book prizes. Also on the shortlist, I'm very eager to read these three novels. So there's Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi, which I've heard pretty much only great things about a mother and daughter relationship, how the daughter has become an adult and is having to care for a mother who didn't always care for her, and who wasn't always mothering in the traditional sense. So yes, I'm very eager to read this soon. It's probably the first one I read, or also the first one I'm going to get to is The Shadow King by Maaza Mengiste. This is set in Ethiopia in 1935 when Mussolini's army is descending upon the country, and a group of women decide to help defend their country. And I've heard there's an incredible battle scene in this, which really makes the novel. And I haven't heard too much about this, but what I have heard are really positive things. So yeah, I'm very eager to get to this as well. And then there is Diane Cook's novel, The New Wilderness, about a mother and daughter who need to escape from the very polluted city that they live in, and to go out into the wilderness with a group of people. I think it has a kind of dystopian fable-like setting, and this is really divided opinion. Like, in general, I've just sort of heard that critics have been very positive about this, but a lot of readers have been quite critical about it and had issues with it. But I'm very intrigued by it and very excited to read it. So this is another one I want to get to soon. And finally, we have the novels This Mournable Body and Real Life. And like I said in the video I made about the Longlist, I read This Mournable Body a couple of years ago and had real issues with it, and just wasn't able to connect and get into the story. It's about a woman in modern day Zimbabwe who's sort of adrift in her life. She's approaching middle age, and she just doesn't really have a place to fit in. And that's a compelling story, but I think my main issues with it are the way that it's told, the way she chose to structure it. It's told in the second person, and I just found that style of narration, the way she uses it, was so distancing, and I couldn't really connect with the main character or the characters around her so much. I mean, there were flashes of where I felt like I was getting some insight and real feeling for her life and the lives of the community around her, but yeah, just couldn't really get into it. And like I said, I buddy read this with a couple other booktubers, and how Sean chose to DNF it, like he chose to DNF a lot of things, and Britta finished the full thing, and both of us felt that it wasn't really worth getting to the end. We didn't get any more out of it. But this is part of a trilogy, and like I said, the first novel, Nervous Conditions, I think is an incredible book, and I'd really encourage people to read that. But it's been really interesting since it's been longlisted, hearing people's reactions to it. There have been some readers who have had a negative experience with it and felt sort of similar to me, but there are other readers who really connected with it. People whose opinions I really trust and admire, and so it has made me think about it more, and whether I should think about it again. But when I read it, I felt like I really gave it a chance. I was listening to interviews with Tsitsi Dangarembga about why she chose to structure it that way, and I understand the choices she made to narrate it in the second person, because the other novels, the first two novels in the series, aren't done in that way, and I understand why she made those choices, but I don't agree with the outcome of it. I just don't think it serves the purpose that it should have done, and it just didn't work for me. I'm afraid, but I kind of wonder too if the judges' decision to put this on the shortlist was slightly swayed by the current politics because it's incredible. Like Tsitsi Dangarembga is a political activist, and after the Longlist was announced, she was arrested in Zimbabwe for protesting, and she recorded on Twitter her whole experience being arrested. And I sort of wonder if they chose to pick this novel to sort of highlight what's happening in Zimbabwe now. But I don't like to make those assumptions. But I think that might have factored into it somewhat. But then also there is Real Life by Brandon Taylor, which is a novel I read about 50 pages of, about a young black man who's from Alabama who moves to a Midwest university and really struggles to fit in there and feels quite alienated from the people around him for good reason. I mean, the friends he goes to talk to when at the start of this novel, are really sort of put him in a box and just are making assumptions about him, and he's just lost his father, and all of the comments they make are really ones that are about themselves, in a sort of similar way to Kylie Reid's book. They're taking on his condition as sort of their own, as if they're too like liberal or open-minded to be above critique. Though obviously, a lot of the things they say are very hurtful and are falling back on stereotypes and assumptions. And, I think it does, capture that condition really well. But at the same time, the way it's written, all of the characters in this, I feel like, are so sensitive, especially the Wallace, the main character. It feels like you can almost feel this like aura of sensitivity around him that anyone that approaches him or touches him, it's like so painful. So I just found it so uncomfortable. I just had to stop reading it because I really wasn't enjoying it, and I really want to enjoy the books that I'm reading. Like I said, I want to be challenged. I want to make my brain work a bit to appreciate and the story. But there's only sort of so far I'm willing to go. And personally, the reading I'm doing now outside of the other reading I'm doing, because I'm doing a lot of reading for the Costa Book Awards, which I'm a judge on the first novel category. And I don't mean to keep bringing that up and in this like egotistical way or like bragging way. It's more just although I'm very like proud and excited to be doing it, but I bring it up because it's a lot of work. I'm reading so much for this prize, and it's a full-time job basically, alongside my real full-time job that I do for money. So any reading I do outside of that, I want to really enjoy the experience of it. And since I wasn't enjoying this, I just sort of put it aside. But also, I'm very intrigued and interested to read this because the judges, not just because the judges have shortlisted it, but because when I talked about this in a reading wrap-up of why I didn't finish it, I thought it was so interesting. In the comments of that video, I got comments from people who both said, oh, read on to the end, then you'll really understand Wallace's character and why he's this way. And then there were other people who responded who said, I read all the way to the end and you don't get any more insight. It's not really worth it. So there are these two competing opinions, and that makes me so intrigued and to see what I'll feel if I read all the way to the end of this novel. Will I grow to appreciate it, or will I just get increasingly annoyed and will it drive me crazy? So I don't know whether I want to put myself through that experience or not. I haven't made that decision yet. I might do, I don't know, watch this space. But if you've read this and have thoughts about it, do let me know in the comments below. I'll be really interested to hear what even more people think. And it's going to be so exciting to hear people discuss this and all 6 of the shortlisted novels, because I think Real Life and This Mournable Body and The New Wilderness are really going to divide a lot of opinions of people. And that sort of controversy is I think, what makes book prizes exciting and fun to follow, because, it shows how everyone has an individual reading experience and will have different opinions about the books. I don't know whether that will stand these books in good stead, that they'll be more likely to win or not. Only 3 debut authors who've had debut novels on the list have won the prize in the past. So I think that works not so much in the four debut novelists' favor for actually winning this prize. So, maybe Tsitsi, Dangarembga and Maaza Mengiste are more likely to win the prize. And also, only three books in the past that have been part of, have been sequels, have won the prize before. So if this Mournable Body wins, it'll be the fourth novel to have won that. And obviously a lot of people would have expected Hilary Mantel would have been the one for that, but nope. And also, I do have to note that I am quite disappointed that Love and Other Thought Experiments didn't make the shortlist for the prize this year. I mean, personally, I loved it so much, and I think it is so daring and creative and insightful about the human experience. So if you haven't read this yet, I'd really encourage you to read it. I had a really interesting conversation with Sophie Ward, which is a video I posted on my channel as well. And I am also still excited and hope to read, after I finished with all of my Costa Book Award reading, hope to get to these other three novels from the Longlist as well, particularly How Much of These Hills is Gold and Paragon. And I do want to read Who They Was as well, but this is a novel I've heard mixed things about, and that it's a novel that definitely requires a lot of concentration, a real putting thought into a book to really appreciate and enjoy it. Yeah, for better or worse, this is the Booker shortlist. So let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Have you read any of these books? What do you think about them? Or what books on this list are you planning to read now, or are you intrigued by or interested in? Or which will you definitely not be reading from the sound of it and the reactions from other readers? Let me know in the comments below. We can have a chat about it. There's lots to discuss, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.